Hi, guys. I'm Josh Brown. What if I told you the banking industry was probably going to rake in close to $40 billion in overdraft fees just this year? What if I told you 1 out of 4 of you, statistically, are going to be charged an overdraft fee at some point over the next 12 months? What if I told you 10% of the population gets hit with 8 overdraft fees a year? Sounds like something we should do something about, no? My next guest is Jason Wilk. Jason is the founder and co-founder and CEO of Davecom, which is fighting that battle every day, helping consumers get better at dealing with personal finance and banking. I'm really excited to have Jason on. We'll talk about what he's doing specifically to help consumers with their banking situations, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so that was a pretty big intro I gave you, but I think it's really exciting what you guys are doing. I'm excited about it, so I wanted to let people know right off the bat what this is all about. Tell us about what made you found Dave.com. What was it about overdraft fees that drove you crazy?
We built the company, Josh, to improve the cost, usability, and accessibility of the financial system in this country. And while that wasn't the mission from the very beginning, we've further established that the real root cause that we were trying to solve for was that $40 overdraft fee. And
Right.
those overdraft fees were triggering $30 billion a year of fees. I thought that was absolutely crazy and that we had to do something about it.
I think it's important to point out that's hitting the people who can least afford to pay it.
That's right. And this is an issue hitting people who are making under $50,000 a year, or under $100,000 a year, which is 90% of people in the country at this point. It is absolutely a problem, mostly as well for minorities who are paying the vast majority of the fees. Even though banking is supposed to technically be free in this country, by having these minimum balance fees, by having overdraft fees, it costs a low-income consumer hundreds of dollars a year just to keep their money at a checking account at a major bank.
How much of the problem of overdraft fees for the group that you're referencing, people making under, let's say, $100,000 a year, how much of that is because they're unorganized versus how much of that is because they just don't have the money to pay bills on time?
So we found it was a little bit of both. And that's why when we first built Dave, the first part of our product is you connect any checking account and we will accurately forecast your upcoming bills and expenses.
Okay.
Previous to Dave, we had apps that told you about where you spent your money, giving you complicated breakdowns of where your money was going. But what people who don't make a lot of money really need to know, and this is what my issue was through college and after college, was where is my money about to go? And there was nothing out
Okay.
there in market that was doing that. So we figured
Okay.
through some pretty basic machine learning, could we actually predict where people were spending, knowing that people are generally creatures of habit? And so that was the first part of the app. The second problem that we realized was that people were falling short just before their paycheck date, and they were getting hit with overdraft fees just because of a $10 gallon of gas or a $5 coffee. And so we created a free cash advance that people can tap into to avoid that negative balance.
Okay. So if I log into the app and I connect my bank account, your algorithm or your software will read the fact that I typically go grocery shopping on the second weekend of every month. And I have an auto payment that comes out of my bank account on a regular basis on the last Thursday of every month. Like I have this rhythm of how I spend money. And so your engine will say, okay, these are the bills that Josh most likely has coming up. And you'll put that in front of me in a way that allows me to do what?
That allows you to make intelligent decisions on what you want to do with what you have left. And so what we
Okay.
focus on for Dave is how much money you can spend in between paychecks. And instead of focusing on your current balance, we highlight your yours to spend. And so that yours to spend balance is what you have left minus your upcoming bills and expenses that you have coming up.
Okay. How am I paying for that as the user of Dave?
So you pay $1 a month for access to those financial service tools. And if you need to use the cash advance product, it's entirely free. And we make money off of that through optional fees such as our tip, where if we help you avoid an overdraft fee, is that worth anything to you? And people on average, about 50% of them give us some form of a tip.
Okay. Because an overdraft fee, according to what you guys have said, equates to something like a 17,000% APR.
That's right.
It's probably the most usurious charge in all of banking. And it's hitting people for whom $38 is like a lot of money. It's like an important amount of money, and they actually need it. So it's like it's hitting people who can't afford it. And if you calculate it as a percentage of the money that people are short for their spending each month, it's something that should never happen. So you guys are saying, okay, we're going to forecast this stuff for you, and heaven forbid, if it turns out you really still do need to spend the money, we're going to advance you a short-term loan, and that'll help you not pay the overdraft fee. So that seems like a pretty valuable service, and you're doing that for $1 plus an optional tip?
That's right.
Okay, so $12 a year to help people avoid anywhere from one overdraft fee to potentially 12.
That's right. And we ourselves obviously have no late fees. And if you don't have enough money to pay the dollar, we won't even charge you that. There's no penalties for anything associated with the app. And what's interesting about Overdraft is that we found the biggest weakness for the challenger banking space was that these companies were rolling out these free checking products that didn't have Overdraft. And what we realized is that people are actually using Overdraft as a very high APR, expensive form of credit. And so when you ship a free checking product that doesn't have that, you now put the person in potentially even more disastrous situation where if you're stuck at a gas station and don't have any money, you'd rather pay the fee than not be able to get home or not be able to get to work. And so the way we really think about our product is a sort of reinvention of Overdraft, one that actually works for the customer, because the concept in general of being able to go negative on your account is a worthwhile one because it gets you from point A to point B and puts food in your stomach. So that's what the real innovation and invention of Dave was back 3 years ago.
Okay, so I feel like similar to a lot of quote unquote innovation in finance and Wall Street, there are a lot of parallels to this, my world. I feel like a lot of innovation really just becomes, we're going to disguise this cost in the form of a different kind of cost, and we're going to put it in front of people and position it in a way that they think they're getting something for nothing, but they're actually paying for it another way. So that's kind of your version. That's like the way you're explaining how banks said, okay, good news, free checking, but don't come up short for 3 days on a bill that's coming in, because it's going to cost you as much as a paid checking account would, and more so. And that's the problem that you guys, I feel like, are addressing head on.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's right. And look, in the new age of banking, with savings accounts that barely pay any interest, and with the stock market being rocky through COVID, if you're not making a lot of money and you're living paycheck to paycheck, the best return on investment for you for financial advice is to stop paying useless bank fees. That alone is going to be a significant return on the money you have sitting in your account.
Absolutely. So you've calculated, you think you've saved your users, and I want to ask you about your users next, but you think that you've saved as much as $65 million net. Is that accurate?
The most recent calculation is about 100 million now.
How many users is that spread out amongst?
It's close to 7 million.
So 7 million. When did you launch Dave?
April 2017.
That's pretty incredible growth over 3 years and change. It seems as though this was something that people have been waiting for, and you brought it to them. It doesn't sound like it required a lot of evangelism. Once you show people what this does for them, why would they say no?
We've been blown away by the success of the product and the company and how many people needed it. When we first launched, we thought people would be mostly attracted to our financial forecast, which tells you about your bills. But it was really the combination of the small dollar amount we'll give people plus the tools that's made a big difference. And we also launched a product last year called Side Hustle that helps people apply for jobs at gig economy companies. And that product has really taken off. About 500,000 people per quarter will apply for work through Dave as another way to prevent overdraft fees by making an extra 10, 20 bucks after their typical day job.
So what does that look like? Somebody that says, you know what, I have a few hours later tonight, maybe I'll deliver some pizzas around town.
That's exactly it.
So how important to you then is, for example, the gig economy? It seems like I saw the CEO of Uber on TV today talking about how much it's been helpful for Uber Eats to be offsetting weakness in areas like rides. How important is the gig economy being strong to the side hustle part of Dave, to that particular product that you offer?
Yeah, living in major cities at this point is incredibly expensive, and oftentimes one job is not enough to achieve financial health, unfortunately. And
Okay.
while we're trying to get people out of bank fees as one major return on investment, another way to get that return is by putting extra money in your pocket with a side income opportunity. And that's why I think we're living in a world where you may have to be a part of the gig economy if you really want to get ahead financially.
At least when you're young and you haven't really figured out your career, and every dollar counts,
Yeah.
which I think this is not the first generation to be in that position. Speaking as a Gen Xer, a lot of people my age graduated school right into the .com bubble blowing up, and a 50% retracement in the S&P 500, and a blown up jobs market in many areas of the country. So,
Yeah.
like, I feel like every generation has a moment like that, and maybe this is that for, I don't know, I guess the oldest Gen Ys or the youngest Gen Xers, where they're just getting out of school, and where do you even apply for a job? So I think it's cool that they have options to pick up extra income. What do you think is like the demographic of Dave, and which way is it headed? So I'm guessing you skew very young, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
We do skew young, so the most popular age is around 22, and
Okay.
depending on where we're marketing the company most, we'll see it go up, as high as the early 30s.
Okay.
We have customers that go as high as in their 50s and 60s, because ultimately overdraft fees is a systemic problem, and people talk about that with their friends and family. So we see a lot of
Right.
sort of siblings and entire families that will utilize the day product together.
So it's like word of mouth. It's like organic growth that you're not even paying for. You're just doing good work, and people tell their friends.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right.
Okay. You have some banks as investors. So, without going into like crazy detail about everyone that's backing your app, the industry gets how onerous overdraft can be if they're willing to back you as you present a solution to it.
Yeah, I think we are an interesting experiment for them to be an investor in, to see how well the company is doing with solving this problem. Early on, we went through an incubator called the Financial Health Network, which is primarily funded by JP Morgan, and they've been a great partner through the history of the company, always checking in to see how we're doing. The same
Right.
with Capital One, who has a really amazing team over there, and very helpful investors. Ultimately, I don't
Okay.
think that any of them like the idea that they're making so much money off of overdraft fees, but their cost structure is so inherently large, and they're trying to support all this retail, that's how they found it the best way to do it. And we fundamentally
Right.
disagree, but if they want to be investors in the company and watch us disrupt it, then that's okay.
So what's next for you guys? Because there are a lot of areas within finance that I would imagine are laden with either hidden or explicit fees, fees that can be easily avoided by slightly better technology and organizational skills on the part of the user. Like, what are you guys looking at and thinking about attacking?
We think there are so many ways to help customers financially, and really the early mantra of the business was to build products that banks will not. And so that's still very much in our product focus right now, is doing things differently than what is typically seen in financial services. So you'll see a lot of
Okay.
interesting stuff coming from us over the next 12 months. I'm happy to share that with you guys as we get a lot closer.
Okay, it's very exciting. So people should go to dave.com. They can open an account with you pretty quickly, pretty easily.
That's right. Takes about 30 seconds.
All right, very cool. Well, I think you guys are doing work that really almost no one has a vested interest in. You guys have found this horrible cost to people who can least afford it, and you've attacked it. And I think you've done it in a very technologically advanced way. But when you're using the app, when you're using the site, you don't feel like it's high tech. You just feel like it's helpful. And I guess that's the magic of what you guys are trying to create. So I think it's great, and it's a pleasure to have you on here. And I hope we could chip away at that overdraft number, because from my perspective, every dollar not being paid in a late fee for a bill is a dollar that can be invested. And time horizons are so important that if people are left with extra money to invest, that makes me happy. So Jason, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. Guys, I urge you, download the Dave app. Visit Dave.com to learn more. If overdraft is an issue, either for yourself or for someone younger in your family, this is a very easy way that they can get their act together and stop paying fees they don't need to pay. So check out Dave as well as Side Hustle. Is that accessible through the app?
That's right.
All right. Thanks again, Jason. Let us know what you guys think. We love your feedback. We love your suggestions, your comments on this topic. Go ahead and like or subscribe the channel if you have not already. We will be back very soon.